delighted to welcome you, Dr. Quraishi, to this interview series with SpeakIn. So in this series, we're featuring India's most distinguished IAS officers. And you are perhaps best known as the Chief Election Commissioner. But of course, before that, you had 35 years of distinguished work in the Indian Administrative Service. You've won several awards and you've published many books. One recent one was on population. And if you have time, I'd love to talk about that as well. So it's an absolute delight for me to welcome you, Dr. Quraishi. Shall we begin?
My pleasure. Yes, of course.
Thank you. So you've had a long and distinguished career in the Indian Administrative Service. If I could just ask you to look back on your 35 and more years in the service, how would you describe your innings as a public servant?
Well, I think this is the best career for young people in India. Of course, we join as young people and but retire as old people. But then 35 years of varied experience, the variety of experience is the best part of the IAS. There used to be a debate that whether we should have generalists or specialists in the IAS. So in fact, it was a considered decision right from the ICS days of the British that it should be generalists who should be manning these services, because the specialists have they know more and more of less and less. They have in-depth knowledge of small things and kind of a tunnel vision. Whereas a man from humanity has a very broad perspective on life and he can adjust to anything. I think there was a great wisdom in that thought. And for most of the civil service years, that was the norm till it was open to engineers and doctors. I'm not saying that they are not as good, but the experience tells us that many of them, just to give you an example, there was an IAS officer working in me who came from an engineering background. So I was the chief administrator of Haryana Pavilion in India International Trade Fair. And he was my deputy. And we hired an artist who became a very well-known and celebrated artist of international importance called Naresh Kapoorian. He was just a young lad those days, but he was working in Triveni as a clerk. So, but the director of Triveni Kalasingam, Mrs. Shridharani, who I regarded highly, I asked her to suggest me somebody, and she said, take him. He is very creative and he will do wonders for you. Now, it requires guts for somebody. Previous year, we had M.F. Hussain, mind you. Now, here I was hiring in LDC. I mean, it requires guts on my behalf, but my trust in the lady's advice. Now, this young man gave us the best pavilion award at the end of the day. Let me first mention that to you. But in the middle of the work, one day he came crying like a baby. So what happened? He said, I cannot work with this gentleman, your deputy. Why? Because you brought me as an artist and he is measuring my work as a carpenter. So much of woodwork, measuring everything. So that is the difference. So that is the day when I called my young colleague and I said, look, you have to broaden your vision. And I'm very happy to say that he's a changed man. But he could have revolted also. He would have been angry with me for giving me this advice. So this is one example which exemplifies that the value of broad vision. Now, coming back to the variety of work, I'm a student of history. And there used to be a student of history, politics, English literature. But we get 2 years of professional training in the IAS, in the National Academy of Administration. That is what makes us expert also. We may be generalists in terms of subject, but we are also expert of public administration. Like an MBA can be head of any company, any organization. Similarly, an IAS officer can head any company, because idea is man management, financial coordination, getting dealing with politicians, dealing with the government. All these things that require special skills, which are taught to us, and we also learn from experience, and which is why we are able to do any job. Now, if today I'm Secretary Agriculture or Director Agriculture, tomorrow Director of Science and Technology, third day IT. I mean, I may not be personally an agriculture expert or IT expert, but we have experts to assist us. And one mistake which IAS officers may make, that since you are the boss, therefore you think you know even the science and art and agriculture. That is a mistake. You have to realize that your job is, to provide the leadership, management, coordination, and for the expertise. You depend on the experts. So I think, does it answer your question, or you want me to say more or something else?
No, let me just provoke you on that a little bit, and this whole generalist versus technocrat debate. Doesn't a generalist usually turn out to be a jack of all trades and master of none? Is that a
Yes.
handicap in any way?
No. That's exactly what I'm trying to justify. Yes, jack of all and master of none. But jack of all, don't mind, because master of something or the other, which you're heading, you already have in the department. So that is exactly the purpose and intention. Otherwise, if you're master of, for instance, there used to be a prime minister who had done BSc in his college, and who, since he had done science, and he used to teach Homi Bhabha how to run Space Research Agency. So and imagine a doctor. There was a young minister at the age of 30, 33. He became a health minister of India. And he used to shout at the director of All India Institute of Medical Sciences every day, because I'm a medical doctor. Damn it, you might be a medical doctor, but if you joined AIM, you would have been a junior registrar. And just because you're a minister, or you're a secretary, or the top officer in the ministry, it doesn't mean you know more than that specialist. The tendency with those specialists is now a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer. He joins the department. He will be virtually the sub SDO. And do you think he knows more than the engineer in chief? So, because he will also go up the hierarchy, and he will also learn gradually. So, I think general jack of all, master of none, I admit, and that is what I'm idealizing. Yes, that's a better idea. That's a good idea.
So let's have you talk about the highlights of your journey in the administrative service.
One thing, Sanjeev, sorry, pardon me.
Not at all.
Having argued, because we were arguing a particular case, there are now 60%, 70% of the IAS are engineers and doctors. Let me clarify to them, because they would be annoyed if he heard only the first part of our conversation. Right? Okay. Now, I recently did 500 interviews of the people who had been called for the interview by the UPSC, and I was asked by Baiju to take their mock interviews. 95%, 90% are engineers. In fact, we were very pained that those engineers are actually engineering and medical require a lot of money, or the government spends a lot of money on them, and they will spend a lot of money. And then going to a generalist service. So is it not a waste of talent? So, but all those people are also doing very well. No doubt about it. They're also doing very well. So, therefore, I'm not undermining, but I just try to explain a concept which was followed for most part of earlier part of India's independent bureaucracy.
I don't know if there's any parallel in this, but I used to be a journalist and a writer with various newspapers, print media, and my field of specialization was arts and culture. So I was, for instance, the film critic of the Sunday Observer newspaper, and typically what I found in other publications, they would have the crime reporter sometimes double up as a film reviewer, which I found preposterous, because you if you have no background in cinema, you don't know cinema history, and at random you are discussing a film and just talking about performances, a little bit about music, this, that, and the other. It turns out to be a very superficial review. So I was totally opposed to that, and I talked about it a lot, but I don't know if there's a parallel in this. So it's
no,
experts versus
Well, I think I will use your own argument to tell you that when you joined, you were not a specialist in agriculture.
I wasn't.
You joined as a journalist, and your training was in journalism. Maybe your earlier assignment could have been as crime reporter, and then you would specialize because you specialize in the job, on the job, right? So similarly, there are many IAS officers who are then posted in the same department, and then they, even if they came from some other background, they became specialists of those subjects. But that comes from training, and not because that is what they were educated in college, and that's why they are brought in as expert. So you specialize by your own free will while in service as a journalist. You could have been in other sector of journalism, is it not?
Absolutely, I agree. So let's move on. We'd like to hear some highlights from your journey in the Indian Administrative Service. What would you describe as the milestones in your career in the IAS?
As I said, we have a variety of exposures, we have a variety of postings. So, and there are surely in every civil servant's career, there will be certain posts which he or she remembers with a special fondness. But one thing is surely common. An IAS officer always talks about his collector days, when he is a collector or a deputy commissioner or district magistrate, as they are variedly called in different states. Actually, all three are relevant designations, and in fact, everyone has all three. I was a collector of Gurgaon, but the designation was popularly known as deputy commissioner. And whenever I signed the judicial kind of order, then I was a district magistrate. So it's the same thing with the three different designations, and you have to put a different stamp on those orders. When I'm imposing section 144 in the district, so I cannot put the stamp of a collector of Gurgaon. It has to be district magistrate because that's a different role. So now the collectorship is the most memorable because that is one job when you have experience of a variety of subjects and a variety of departments. Every department under the sun is under you. Therefore, you have to perforce be dealing with each sector, and then the scope for creativity for your original contribution. There are 1 to 2 million people working under you whose life you can make a difference to. So that is one. And then there are, again, it's a question of individual preference. Were 2, 3 good jobs which I had, which I remember. One, I was a secretary of the Department of Power, Energy, Electricity. Now, that was under Mr. Bansilal, and he had put his chair on stake, saying that he will give 24 hours of electricity supply to the citizens of Haryana. So his stakes were high, and he gave me an assignment of doing power reforms. And I'm very proud of that thing. I'm not an engineer, mind you, not an electrical engineer, but we did power reforms which involved first passing of an act in the Haryana Vidhan Sabha, unbundling of the Haryana State Electricity Board into 4 different companies, transmission, generation, and 2 distribution companies. And this was a World Bank assisted project, negotiating with the World Bank $600 million, which was a great experience because we got to know lots of things. We have to learn. We have to learn at every day, at every stage. So how to negotiate with the bank, what are the procurement procedures, what are the sensitivities, and the economics of all that. So I am setting up a regulatory commission, choosing the commissioner, and all that was a wonderful experience, which I remember. Since you do these reforms only once in a lifetime, so I think I had this unique experience, which I fondly remember. Then working as Principal Secretary Chief Minister, Mr. Chautala. Again, that is one position when you are dealing with everybody, everything. So you need an overview of the state, and the buck stops there. You are acting right under the Chief Minister and working on his behalf with many things. That was one. Then I worked as DG Doordarshan. That is also a unique experience. It was a short tenure. It was cut short for some political reasons, but whatever little I did, 1.5 years out of 3, it was a wonderful experience. Finally, Election Commission. Now, I'm a generalist. I'm a student of history. But if you were to consult my colleagues who have seen me as the journalists of Haryana or India who have dealt with me, they will all tell you that I did a good job there. Now, jack of all, master of none, but did a great job in all his jobs, proved the point that Jack being a master of none was not a handicap at all. If at all, it was an advantage because the open-mindedness which comes with jack of all is the biggest asset. You have to be open to ideas. Ideas may come from the junior most. And you must have the sense to see what somebody is saying. It makes a lot of sense, and we grab it and follow it. Just to give an example, election commissioner, chief election commissioner of India, we were reforming the system all the time. One young collector or a district magistrate in Arunachal Pradesh on China border, where there were polling stations where it used to take 3 days to reach the polling station. And suppose the booth is captured or there is some trouble, we will get to know after a week. When the election is over, the results are out, and then we get to know it's useless. So the DM there, when Mrs. Sharma, I forget her first name just now, so she said, sir, I'm experimenting with something. I will do live webcast from 5 polling stations, and this is the code where you please watch on your television in Election Commission, Delhi. I did. And I saw one interesting thing happening, that in one polling booth, a policeman in uniform entered the polling booth. He is not supposed to. There is no security force in uniform or without uniform can enter because it will intimidate the voters. So now that was an illegality which happened, and I saw it. Otherwise, who would know? Nobody will ever know. So immediately we inquired into it. Of course, it turned out that it was a foolish and innocent entry. No evil intention, but the fact that we got to know, oh, we love the idea so much that we have made it an all-India scheme. All over the country, in the 20%, 30% of polling stations we have been using for the last 10 years, the live webcast, and it has been working very well. So, there's openness to ideas and adopting them. These are something which one can really recount. And I've actually recounted them in my book, which let me just show you. It is called An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election. This one is the 3rd edition. Now, currently, we have the 5th edition, which is paperback. Why I'm clarifying that if somebody were to order after seeing this, order the latest, which is a paperback.
Because it's updated.
It is updated till 2019. Sure. Yes.
Dr. Quraishi, if I may take you back to what you were saying earlier, that the best days perhaps of a civil servant are, when you're posted as a collector or a DM. I have many friends in the civil services, many, peers and contemporaries who chose the civil service over other career options. And when I try to provoke them a little bit, and I tell them that in the first quarter of your career, you have a connect with people at the grassroots level. But perhaps the later 3 quarters of your career that connect is lost because you're now in a policy making position. As you grow up in the hierarchy of the Indian government or the bureaucracy, you lose that connect. What would you say to that?
Hey, that's a good point. Absolutely well taken. That's true, but you can't expect an IAS officer to remain a collector all his life. Or in fact, after 3 years, my philosophy is, there are people who've done it for 10 years. I personally feel 3 years is essential. And after that, it is a waste of time. Because you are just doing the same thing again and again, and it also spoils you. Because in the district, you are semi-god, demigod. And if that is what you start becoming, and you become arrogant. So
it goes to your head.
Yeah. 3 years, it goes to your head. 3 years is essential because of the experience it gives you. But beyond that, it's a waste of time. So, no, to say that obviously you are not dealing with the people, but the experience which you have brought, you've taken right to the top. But as I said, my original thing, now you may not be an expert, you may not be in direct contact, but you are dealing with officers, younger collectors, younger officers who are in touch with people. So therefore, losing that connect is a bad idea, which should not happen. But that connect remains, but not very directly, but through your second rung and the third rung. And since you have have experience dealing with people, then you will understand what these guys are saying and deal with them accordingly. So yeah, that is true.
But personally speaking, 15, 20 years into your career, did you miss that immediate connect with people?
Well, fortunately for me, much later I was Joint Secretary Youth Affairs, Government of India. And I was, in addition, Director General of Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan. And we had 300,000 youth clubs working under me. And for me, the entire country was like a collectorate. I was traveling all over the country, remotest places. So therefore, I would not be able to give you an honest answer in the sense that I had a different experience. And I was a field man, being in the ministry at Shastri Bhavan. I was still I used to roam around, travel the country far and wide. So, and that was one. I was also head of a national services scheme, which was 2 years of optional social service for a student in about 1,000 universities. So going to colleges, going to the universities, dealing with vice chancellor, dealing with student, another unique experience. But that was unique to me. And mind you, when I joined as joint secretary in the youth affairs, my seniors who were in a position to get me a better posting, and they were trying to persuade me. I said, no, my gut tells me that this is an important job because the 70% of India is youth below 25 years, 35 years. So how can youth ministry not be important? And then the kind of subjects, for instance, I mentioned 300,000 youth clubs. What were they doing? Education, environment, family planning, you name it. The range of things. In fact, once my colleague and I, we were sitting and we said, hey, look at the variety of things which youth clubs can do. Can we just make a list? So, and then tell others, because you might be doing environment, the other person may be doing school enrollment or improvement of education or something or the other. You may not know about each other's sector. So, 101 things which a youth club can do. First, we started just counting 20, 30, 40, 50. We were amazed, 50 things a youth club can do. And within half an hour, we had a list of 101 things which a youth club can do. Which we immediately printed. It was a leaflet we printed and circulated. And after 3 days, we came out with a second edition, another 101 things which a youth club can do. So now the variety of exposure, variety of things that they were doing, it was unique, and I really missed those days. And fantastic things we did.
So sounds like in these roles that you just talked about, youth affairs and Nehru Yuva Kendra and so on, you had the best of both worlds. You were in a policy making role, but you still had to connect with people. If we can move on to another aspect of the administrative service, and if I can ask you, in the days that I was growing up, and I'm a little bit younger than you, but not much. In those days, IAS was seen as the career, as a coveted career. Everyone aspired to be either an engineer or a doctor or a civil servant, and there was no fourth option. But of course, times have changed now, and corporate careers are, incredibly attractive these days in terms of both money as well as challenges. What's your assessment of where the Indian administrative service stands today? Is it still a desirable career for young people?
Well, if I was young again, I will still opt for it. maybe because I have had the best of experiences. Now, at the same time, to the question whether it still attract the best talent, there I would say that perhaps it doesn't, because nowadays there were not so many opportunities. The multinationals who give you huge salaries, and from they pick you up from the campus, and they give you more salary than you get after 35 years working as cabinet secretary. Now a beginner, a fresher gets that much of salary. Now those options were not there then. So therefore, it will be correct to assume that the best people go to those highly lucrative jobs where they really need very, very, very bright people. But once that section has gone to the most lucrative sector, from the rest, and there are a lot, the fact that 1 million people apply for 100 jobs or to 500 jobs, and the 500 who are eventually they selected 150 IAS officers, rest other services, actually it adds up to about 800 to 1,000 people. 1,000 people out of 1 million means that you got the best of the nation still join the civil services.
One more question about the civil services before we, talk about some of the specific roles that you had in public service. How does a civil servant maintain political neutrality? You are an arm of the executive. You support the executive in decision making. You implement those decisions. But how do you ensure, and in the context of the last maybe decade in particular, I'm very interested in knowing your thoughts on how do you maintain political neutrality.
This is one subject which is taught to us from day one, which means that in 1971, when I joined the academy, this was top subject, and it is perhaps the top subject even today. My own, of course, we are taught how to deal with politicians, how to be respectful, but don't do anything wrong, because if you try to please the politician, they also test you. If you show your backbone and refuse to do something wrong, then they test you, and then they will make you a doormat. So how to recognize that, and how much to accommodate them, how much to defy them. All these things are discussed. I would not say formally taught, but they are discussed, and we come to our own conclusion. But my own experience in my time was that 90% of the time there should be and there is no clash between politician and the civil servant. If the civil servants realizes that their roles are different, I have to do my job, but I'm not in a popularity race and I'm not in competition with the politician. So if he wants to take the credit, I think it makes sense that even if you have a bright idea, you go and tell the people that it is my MLA who has given this bright idea, so MLA will support you and your idea will flourish. For us, the important thing is that my idea, my baby should survive, my baby should flourish. And even if it flourishes in the lab of my enemy. So, what I used to do, take the politicians into confidence. This is what I'm planning to do, and I need your support, and you also go with me. You talk to people, all credit yours. You take the credit, but allow me to function, give me support. So, so that kind of a bargain actually was a win-win thing. So, because I'm not going to fight an election. He does. That's why he needed to be kept in the picture and involved. 90% in any case, your interest, his interest was the same. You wanted uplift from the people, he wanted uplift. That 10% of the time he will do what is called sifarish. मेरा सरपंच, मेरा बंदा, उसको नौकरी दे दो, उसके सरपंच has been suspended, उसको restore कर दो. I remember, and there also we had different experiences with different politicians. I was, my first posting was as SDM in Sonipat, Haryana. Two ministers of my district, totally different approaches. One minister would say, Quraishi साहब, this sarpanch has been suspended. ये तो मेरा आदमी है, मेरा खास आदमी है. इसको कैसे ये suspend हो गया? जरा बताएं मुझको. So, what you need to do, buy time. If you immediately say, so sorry, it cannot happen, he will get you transferred the next day. Much easier today than it was then, of course. So, but then, sir, I'll inquire and find out. And once you inquire and you go back to the minister with facts, and we say, sir, इसने तो ये तो बड़ा बेईमान है, इसने तो ये 2 जगह ये बेईमानी की थी, तीसरी जगह ये की थी, ये चोरी की थी, अच्छा तो बंदा इसके 2 थप्पड़ भी मारो मेरी तरफ से. Now, सिफारिश withdrawn, मारो थप्पड़, because he realized that you were honest and what you had done was correct. And you were, if you win his trust, this is his reaction. There was another minister who once came with a sifarish case, some bus conductor was suspended. So he said, all right, give me time to find out, because obviously you don't know everything offhand. So when I checked up with the Transport Roadways Authority, we found that he had 62 complaints of corruption against him. Now this minister, when I went back to the minister, के साहब इसके तो 62 शिकायतें, एक मौका और दे दो. So now 62 शिकायतें doesn't matter, give him another chance. This is another thing. So we have to learn to deal with them. One is keep them informed, give them information, and always be polite and try and persuade. And chances are that there are some women now these days. The politicians of perhaps have become more assertive, more aggressive. These days, dealing with them must be a lot more difficult. And to that extent, I agree with you, Vermaji, that I'm cut off with that kind of grassroots reality. But by and large, the situation is the same. For instance, I don't know whether you expect short answers and normal answers.
No, absolutely. You can
Okay.
dilate.
Just to give you one example from my district days. And my focal area was education. It could have been industry, it could have been something, but I chose education because in Gurgaon district, Mewat area, which is now a separate district, was extremely backward. Just about 10% literacy. Can you believe it? So I studied the subject and I wanted to do something, and I found that the enrollment used to be low. So the reason given were different, and when we asked the sarpanches, why do you send your children? He said, school, which is school? That Kikar ka ped under which the children are sitting. So there was no building. So the ball came back to my court. And then another sarpan got up. He said, why should we send our children to school? What you called a school has 172 children with only one teacher who cannot control them. So it's better that they are our children are in the front of our eyes and they're not getting spoiled. I said, all right, if we give you building, the good schools, so yes, of course. So we started doing a building program, and there used to be those days, it's 25,000 rupees to every block for discretionary grant for education, which ministers used to distribute through the DC, of course, or DC used to do through the minister. किसी ने 5,000 दे दिए, किसी ने 10,000 दे दिए. So one day, my local minister came to me, Quraishi Saab, I had gone to Hisar and the deputy commissioner took me with him to various villages, and he made me give away this thing, that thing, that thing, that thing. So I said, Mantri ji, I can do the same thing. I'm not going to give you money just to throw away, because I'm using it in a planned manner. But you can lay the foundation stone of the school building, which I'm starting. So you get the same credit. You will get, your name will come on stone. You will get to address public meeting. You will get all the clapping for you. He was very happy. Now, I was able to do my job in a planned manner. Did not allow him to just throw away money indiscriminately, and he was happy that I gave him the limelight. So we were able to work out a good relationship, for which you have to think, you have to work out a formula, negotiate, and so far we discussed about negotiating. I also even negotiate with my bosses. A new boss comes, I will first be asking, sir, what do you expect from me? Can I call you after your office hours? Can I call you at home? Can I do this? Can I do that? And one boss, and don't mind naming him, Mr. K.R. Venugopal, who is the father-in-law, by the way, of Satya Nadella.
Oh,
So,
he was at the Prime Minister's office.
yeah, Prime Minister's office. He was secretary to the Prime Minister.
Yes,
He was my
I know
boss.
him. I know him well. He was
No,
a brilliant
wonderful
man.
man.
He worked with NTR, right?
Yeah. He did, but he was with Narasimha Rao when he was the Prime Minister. He was my joint secretary in Women and Child Development. I was Director Child Development. So, and I asked him, sir, what do you want? How do you, what kind of relationship do you maintain and you like? So he gave me an answer which I remembered till date. He says, Yaqub, you are in the front line. It has to be your decision. If you get to know something at 2 in the morning, it is your call whether you should wake me up or not. Very good. So he gave me an authority to wake him up at 2 o'clock if there is some emergency or something which has to be brought to his notice. Of course, it didn't happen. But the fact that, he's had the right thought, and we clarified. There were some bosses who were always very, very officious. There were others who kept the doors open. So it is good to know before you offend them. It's good to know what they expect and try and adjust. So to their liking and disliking, their style of management. So it works. It works very well. Until today, we are in communication because we built up a lifelong relationship.
Absolutely. A young person is naturally sort of ambitious, and a bureaucrat, by very definition, is, like you also said, primarily faceless, nameless. You work in the background. Nobody really knows about you, and in these days of vaulting ambition, when you want your imprimatur seen on just about everything that you've done, you want to claim it as yours. How do you convince young people that working namelessly, facelessly is all right?
Well, we say that the same thing to whosoever would care to listen to us. Sometimes we are invited to the academy to address young people, and either it is a subject of your expertise. For instance, I have often spoken on the Indian election, but in the process of talking about elections, it also involves human relations, political civil servant relations, and all that. So it depends, because we surely, they like to hear from us. Well, just as the kind of questions you're asking are the kind of questions which young officers will ask us in the academy. And so it is up to them to take it or leave it. We can't force them. We can only share our experience. Sensitive among them surely pick up these ideas, and there are arrogant ones who feel, and that there is one phase in your life in the early years of the early months of the academy, you feel you're God, you have arrived. Oh, I've achieved. I'm in the survey after failing 7 times, and they feel arrogant. So, but then those who are sensitive and are happy to pick up ideas from the seniors, so they learn. That's how we share our experience. Experience sharing is a regular program of the academy. In fact, experience sharing at 2 levels. In our time, I remember, I'm sure they still have. We, as you know, we have a sandwich course. We go for 6 months, and for 1 year we are posted in the district. Then we go back to the academy. So this is why it is called the sandwich course. So in the second phase, we used to have almost a month-long session of sharing district experiences. All of us went to various districts, and we had interesting experiences to share, a variety of them. Many of them were related to law and order only, so there was a kind of a commonality. But many of us had totally different experience. For instance, I described one public meeting of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who had come there. Is the crowd management, the behavior of the police, and all that. So there are so many things, but we learn from each other.
If I could just ask you quickly to recount your experience as the Chief Election Commissioner, that's something which came into prominence, particularly with Mr. T.N. Seshan, who established the authority of the Election Commission, and it became a coveted role after he assumed charge. So, firstly, am I right in thinking along those lines, or that's not?
No, perfect. Yeah, it is true that Mr. Session brought Election Commission into limelight. Till then, Election Commission was not so well known and was not so well respected or even feared. So he brought he put the fear of God in politicians and the civil servant, both of whom took it very casually. So there is no doubt that he did a wonderful thing. But there have been chief election commissioners who have done equally good job. Some of them, I would say, even better job, but without the same kind of fanfare or noise, limelight, because what Mr. Session did was the need of the hour. Yeah, but to say that I eat politicians for breakfast, only he could to say that and get away. If we try to emulate and try doing that, there will be a tremendous backlash. So, but at the same time, many of us have contributed. We have also laid a few bricks, and in fact, we basked in the glory which was creation of Mr. Session. There is no doubt, but we all contributed. And one lesson which I personally would like to share, because I've mentioned it in the book also, that you have so much of power that and if you have power, you have to use it. If you don't use it, and if you're still as scared as you were as a deputy secretary or a director, then God has given you this opportunity when you have a security of tenure. Nobody can touch you. You cannot be removed except through impeachment. Do what you like. You should use your power. Mr. Session did, and he became famous. And I still fondly have mentioned in my book the 3-4 things which I remember, which recall with fondness, which I did. There used to be 3 posts of joint secretary, 3 deputy election commissioners. I created 3 more because I could. And why? I created a voter education division, because voter turnout used to be very low, in many places 20%, 25%. And we thought educating voters was our job. I mean, with a lot of opposition, even from my seniors in the election commission. Teaching your voters is not our job. Our job is only managing the elections and using our danda.
Which year was this?
2006, I joined as an election commissioner, and I was told to do it in your time. I was a PhD in communication, so I realized the value of communication. So I waited for my time, 4 years. And as soon as my time came, I set up a voter education division. Highest turnout in history. Bihar to 2010 was the first election. Highest turnout in history. More women came out to vote than men. And
what percentage?
Whatever it was, I don't remember. It was a low percentage, where it used to be 45%, and it became about 56% or something. It was tremendous. Later on, 2 years later in UP, 45% increase in the turnout. If there is 2%, 3% increase, we celebrate. Here was 45%, because we went to town with a voter education program of all kinds, and that was the time when there used to be a demand that there should be compulsory voting. I said compulsion and democracy don't go together. We can achieve through persuasion and education, we should do that. And it's a long story, because you have already, we are on extension from FR. What is it?
FRs.
I've never heard this name before. Sorry, I had to check it. So since we are under notice from him, so, but there is an answer which needs to be understood. So, anyway, I think I'll leave it at this.
But do you feel sad at the dilution of the role of the Chief Election Commissioner? I mean, in recent years, what's happening? What's your assessment of that?
Well, I hesitate to answer this, but there were, I used to make a presentation which I have made worldwide from Harvard University to Oxford University, and it used to be very well received. That was the collage of newspaper headlines after the 2009 general election, which was then the largest election in world history. Well done, EC. Congratulations, EC. EC, well begun is half done. Fantastic, EC. Praise. And from the top newspaper, you are a journalist, Mr. Verma, you can't buy those headlines, And now, last year, 2 years ago, I came across 35 headlines. Shame on the Election Commission, disgrace, this, that. Now, from the same newspapers and many more, surely something happened, something wrong happened. So, why? It's unfortunate, and I hope it is a temporary phase. There are bright spots, there are a little less bright spots, but the fact that you asked this question, I'm sure I should ask you this question. What do you think? Do you think we still enjoy the same reputation? There was a time in Election Commission when there used to be public surveys. Army, Judiciary, and Election Commission were always rated the highest in whatever sequence. Perhaps our rating got a beating, because whatever we do, good or bad, cannot be hidden from the public. In this age of media particularly, everything is visible to the people, and then they come to their own conclusion. So, but I'm very happy with the current lot. The current Chief Election Commissioner and his second Commissioner, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, Mr. Pandey, they're wonderful people. And every second day we hear something about some reform which they're doing. And in fact, recently I had a meeting with them, and they were recalling my contribution. For instance, I set up an India International Institute of Democracy and Election Management. And they were asking for to hear firsthand from me. There was a lot of opposition from the law ministry of the land, against this. But I went ahead and set it up on the top floor of Election Commission. And today, 93 countries of the world have trained from us. So entire commissioner, whole 5 commissioners, 9 commissioners, 15 commissioners of many countries have come to get training from us. We have become wish guru. Dr. Manmohan Singh used to say, Quraishi, what you are doing is our soft power. That is our soft power. And imagine there was a time when the law ministry, his own Mr. Dr. Manmohan Singh's law ministry was opposing it. But it required guts for us to go ahead and set it up against all odds, and how much of glory it has brought to the country. Unfortunately, the media and others probably haven't got to know about it as much. Otherwise, I think this deserves a case study. In fact, international idea which you mentioned in my introduction, India International Institute of Democracy and Election Management in Sweden, asked me to do a case study of this. They only got 2 case studies done worldwide, and this one, IITM, is one of them. Case study, how in the face of odds you can still do things, and what are the challenges, financial challenges, administrative challenges and all. So it is documented, but unfortunately, because of economy for the last some years, they will stop publishing. It is only available on the website. You will find that case study on the website. And there are many other things. In fact, if I may say, let me see your name again, Nafaz. Yeah. So, okay, give me 2 minutes. You gave the 5 minutes to Mr. Verma. Give me 2 minutes also. Okay. So, one more experience I would like to share. Something which we did for young people. Mr. Verma, you had asked about young people. I had gone to Bhubaneswar. There in a Swell Society meeting, somebody raised his hand and said 18 years is a very special age which must be celebrated. I said, that's a wonderful idea. Let us think of a celebration. I had a very wonderful colleague, Dr. Bhagwan Prakash, with me, and he belonged to Odisha. And I said, Dr. Saab, now your challenge, please come up with a scheme. He came up with the scheme, National Voters Day. Every 25th of January, we will celebrate. We have been celebrating for 11 years, National Voters Day to celebrate the young people, the young voters. And what we did was, this was in September, we started identifying all the young voters who will become eligible on 1st of January of the next calendar year, because then for 1st of January is the qualifying date. So, but we did advance action. We identified them, and 25th of January, we organized 8 lakh functions across the country to give them their new card. Now, I wrote a letter, Vermaji, to the then Cabinet Secretary, since you know many people, Mr. K. Chandrasekhar, who happened to be my class fellow from college. So I wrote to him that, Mr. Cabinet Secretary, we are planning to celebrate the National Voters Day on 25th January. Please write to ministries and departments requesting them to extend cooperation. So, you know, more like a courtesy letter. Now, this was written in October, mid-October, October, November, December, January. 19th of January, I get a call from him. And what did he say? Quraishi, your proposal for National Voters Day is coming before the Union Cabinet today. The moment I heard the word proposal, my heart sank. Look, you're calling it proposal, I have almost implemented it. So, and what if you reject it? So he said, no, anyway, he said, we have not yet rejected, but there are two questions. I said, what? He said, do you want a national holiday? And how much money do you want? Idea is good. So I said, I don't want a holiday and I don't want a single rupee. He said, what? Are you mad? Pagal ho gaya hai? You said you are going to organize 8 lakh functions and you say you don't want any money. I said, I don't want any rupee because registering voters is my job anyway. I do it around the year and I'm just converting it into an event in one specific day, everybody working together. So if that creates an impact, I'll use the money which is available to me anyway. So this must be the only proposal in India's history where the cabinet has approved a proposal on just 10-line letter from one officer, the chief election commissioner in this case, and no cabinet memorandum sent to 20 ministries, crisscrossing, opinion advice, legal advice, security advice, nothing, because it was so doable, so simple, and no money. So now 7 countries, as per my knowledge in the world, including Pakistan, our great friend, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, they have all because 35 CECs of the world were present in this meeting when Rashtrapati Pratibha Patil ji inaugurated this scheme. So, you know, these are the innovations which we did. And my 2 colleagues now, currently, only last week, they said that, you know, they were highly appreciative of all these initiatives. And it was my opportunity to inspire them and tell them, hey, look, if I could do it, I was one of you, and you are one of 2 of us. So you can do similar thing. Whatever reform you could do, please go ahead and do it, particularly those where you don't have to look left, right, and or in front of the minister or ministry or anyone. What you can do, please go ahead and do. And they appreciate it. And I hope you were asking me how we motivate our younger colleagues. My conversation.
It's been a wonderful conversation, Dr. Quraishi. I've learned many things about you in the course of these 45 minutes or whatever it's been. One of the things that I've learned is that you are known widely. One of the small things that I've learned is that while you're known widely as S.Y. Quraishi, I've discovered that your second name is Yaqub, since you talked about K.R. Venugopal in that context. So what does S stand for?
Yeah, good question. It's not Sayyid, as many people mistakenly believe. It is Shahabuddin Yaqub Quraishi.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation. Many thanks for it.
My pleasure. You are a great interviewer, and Hafaz is a very patient listener. So it's good to have a captive audience. I'm so glad. Thank you so much. You're wonderful people. Bye-bye.